Thanks so much, everyone. Welcome back to Real People Confidential, RPC-5. It's where we spend about 5 minutes with a real person, and I interview people from all walks of life. You'll find Hollywood starlets here, homeless people, everyone in between. And I keep it confidential because the names and titles don't matter. What matters is the truth behind their journey and their walk of life. And today I'm blessed to be joined by a woman who's going to share in a conversation about what it feels like to be abandoned, and not just abandoned as a child, but abandoned into adulthood by the two people who should ideally be standing next to you and care for you most. And I say should. People say stay away from should. I'm not going to stay away from it because it's true. They should. And in this case, they have not. So she's going to walk us through what that abandonment has done to her life and what she copes with today, and give you some practical advice on how to cope if you're in a similar situation. So thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. So when we met, you were performing, and you are what I call a high profile person. And one of the things that stood out for me when I saw you performing was, oh my God, what an amazing talent, what an amazing life. And I got to know you better. And obviously, yes, there's pockets of your life that are extraordinary, but I don't think a lot of people know that you struggle with something that's very real, and it's abandonment. And it still affects you into adulthood because the people who abandon you were your parents, and they haven't had any much spiritual or emotional growth. So it is what it is. Can you tell me how this has affected you into adulthood most?
Oh, yeah. So, basically, my parents gave me to my grandmother to raise. Since I was pretty much an infant, I don't really remember either of my parents, living with either of my parents. And from the stories that I was told, I was months old when my maternal grandmother raised me. So, although she was an amazing woman, and I believe that God, blessed me with her, I always grew up feeling like, why wasn't I good enough for them to want to be part of my life? And it had a profound effect on me. I always felt this need to want them in my life. And so it on the one hand, it helped me excel as a student. I always wanted to be the best student because I felt that if I was the best student and I was a good girl, then they would want to be, my mom and dad. So it helped me, but then I always had this hole in my heart that never went away, this emptiness. And it followed me into adulthood. And then that's when it really started to affect me negatively.
And can you talk a little bit about that hole and how it has affected you and what it's done to your relationships? Because I've worked with a lot of folks who shared their struggle with abandonment issues, and it just it can create this constant feeling of, I've got to fill this hole up.
Yeah. So what happens is that no matter, you could be in a room with 100 people, and if 99 of them love you but one doesn't, you still feel empty. You want that one to love you, and that's not healthy. And you're constantly craving. You're constantly looking for connection, and a lot of times you're looking for connection with people that are not worthy of. They're not equally yoked, or they're not in the same. They're not sharing the same sensibilities as you. And it's funny. I was listening to a pastor the other day, and it said that our father teaches a daughter who she is. He gives, and so I didn't have that, and I was always looking for that from other relationships, especially male relationships, and so now I'm in a relationship and I have a son now, and unfortunately it's, my abandonment issues are wreaking havoc on my relationship because, if my significant other does something, it triggers my abandonment issues, and, it's unfair to him. If a friend who's been a friend for a long time does something that maybe to another person who wasn't abandoned, these triggers, it becomes so mountainous, and it shouldn't be. And I feel like, for me as a parent now, I know parenthood is hard, but I can't imagine leaving my son ever. So for me, as an adult now, I think the reason why the abandonment is harder is because it's like, I don't get as an adult why you would leave a child, like how could you do that?
It's so it creates another layer. It creates another layer of a burden for you to carry. How have you coped? What recommendations do you have for anyone who's dealing with any type of abandonment in their life and carrying this secret burden? What would you suggest?
Yeah. So definitely therapy, because I'm not equipped with the tools to handle it on my own. I have reestablished my relationship with God. So besides going to church on a weekly basis, I'm constantly listening to sermons of pastors that I really connect with. I'm reading a lot of either motivational quotes or books that I feel just kind of fortify my faith. I journal, not on a daily basis, but I journal, especially when I'm feeling, it's almost like, the hole that's there, it's not always open. It's almost like a wound, right? So when a wound heals, it has a scab, right? But sometimes the scab will come off, and so then it's kind of open and it hurts again. So in those moments when that scab is off is when I journal the most, because I need to kind of let that hurt out somehow.
Yes.
So that it doesn't manifest itself in behavior that's going to be harmful to my family or to my loved ones, to people, my friends.
Now, I think it's amazing that you've taken control of really what I call self-health, and you've done a combination. You've reached out as well as you're doing things for yourself every day. And the truth is, no one can do that work for you. I rarely do this in my interviews, but I want to ask you to talk to the man or woman who is considering or actively detached from their child, or is considering, just for whatever reason, I'm out. Talk to that man or woman right now. What would you say?
So, especially for a man, I think the reason is because I had a female figure. My grandmother raised me, and my mother was somewhat in my life. My dad, it's been almost 20 years since we've stopped all communications. My mom and I still talk, although irregularly. I think that it's important for a man to know that the first relationship a little girl or his daughter has with the opposite sex is that with her father. And that will shape who she becomes as a woman, whether or not she will have the confidence to grow up knowing this is how I should be treated. This is what I deserve. this is what I will accept. That she should know that her dad always has her back. That she should know that she's always protected. I think that men who have daughters need to understand how profound the effect of a positive relationship or a negative relationship will have on that little girl. Because that little girl will eventually grow up and become a mom, a wife, a businesswoman or whatever. The point is that relationship will always have an effect on a woman's life. That with her father.
I think
different than that with her mom.
I agree with you.
I think it's important for men to understand, especially if you have a little girl, that this is our first male-female relationship. That with our dad.
I agree with you, and I thank you so much for sharing your wisdom today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.